but here in the Cincinnati area, it's a coalition of 25 faith groups. I have to learn not to say churches because there are churches and synagogues and mosques involved that basically serve as family homeless shelters throughout the year. There are 25 host congregations where families actually stay and sleep and eat during the week, and then there are another 75 supporting congregations that provide volunteers and resources to those host congregations. But in the Cincinnati area, they run every 52 weeks a year. Every week of the year, they have at least 2 churches running, each with about four or five families in them. During the summer, they have a third site because family homelessness grows during the summertime, and trying to fill the needs. However, it's important to understand that even though this is one of 4 family shelters in our area, that still only about 1 in 5 families that call needing shelter are able to find space or able to get in. There's no waiting list. It's just a matter you have to keep calling back every day, and hopefully one day they'll tell you there's a bed available someplace. With the Interfaith Hospitality Network, it means that you go check in at a day center, which has social workers that do the intake and help the families and see that they get the transportation where they need to be. And then basically at 5 o'clock, you and your family head out to a church to spend the night. So that's sort of the model of the network. In other places, it is a national model. In other places, they call it Family Promise. They changed the name. Interfaith Hospitality Network is the old name, and the local group decided, no, we really like that name, we're going to stick with it. For Christ Church Cathedral, we've been in the program now for, I believe it's 17 years. And so we've been a host congregation. We have a very large undercroft or church basement area that during the weeks that we host 5 weeks a year. So during those 5 weeks, each of the 7 nights, 7 evenings, the families come to us, and we've divided bedrooms just with curtains in this large open space in the church undercroft as bedrooms. So they don't, some churches have it set up where they use classrooms and the people have at least a private room. It's visually, you can't see each other, but you can hear each other snore and other things at night. So they have these curtained bedrooms and an open area where the children play and where we serve the meals. We're lucky to have a large commercial kitchen, so people come every night, volunteers from the church come every night and fix a sort of home-style meal for the families, and then we bring in groceries so they can make lunches and have breakfast food. It takes about 40 volunteers on our part to run the week, because you have to have people there overnight, as well as to provide the food, as well as to do the setup and to do the laundry afterwards. So all in all, it's about 40 people. Now, we do have one support congregation, Calvary Church in Clifton, comes in on Thursday nights and Thursday evenings, and they provide the food and the volunteer hosts, and they even have someone that stays overnight. So.
Now, one of the problems in the past I know has been if you have a teenage son, it's very difficult. You can't get into the Salvation Army or into Bethany House. Is that an area that IHN fills, or?
Yeah, it is. That's true that some of the programs don't take older boys, and some of them don't even take men. So, right. Which would mean that if there were couples, and there are sometimes couples that they have to split up. IHN will take the whole family, and now they even talk about they take the family pet. They have a kennel that they can they can house the animal while you are in shelter. You don't carry the animal around with you to the church, but they provide care for the animal while you are in shelter. But yeah, it's men, women, older boys, You are living in a communal setting. There's not a tremendous amount of privacy. So it's, it's hard. It's very, very hard on the families.
And then the goal is to move them to permanent housing?
The goal is to stabilize their housing. In the last several years, there is some dollars, federal dollars, that can do a special rent program when people are coming out of shelter. So sometimes they're able to move them in and assist their rent for a couple months. And which may or may not be permanent housing, may be a transitional stage. But the average family stays in the shelter, in the interfaith shelter, for a month to 6 weeks. Now, some have been there 3 months, and there isn't a deadline, but the social workers continue to work with families to, whatever the issue was that they lost housing, to try to work with that. And try to work through it and help them find a place. But the stable permanent housing means you have to have income in order to pay the rent. Even if they help for a few months, you're going to have enough income in order to pay the rent afterwards.
So who are your families that you see? How would you, what range would you characterize?
I'll tell you, the one thing that's been surprising is that it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to describe it because the range is so great. There are usually single parents, usually single mothers, but we've had single fathers. There seem to be more couples than what in the last couple years and what I've seen before. And some of that may be, I think some of the other families may have had men in it, but as you can imagine, it's very hard for a man to put up with going to the church and sleeping in this communal setting. The ego makes it difficult, so sometimes if they were in a couple, he may choose to go stay with a buddy or something. That wasn't able to take the whole family. But we have couples, most of them these days work. We've had trouble adjusting because the work hours often bring them in the middle of the night, or they leave at 3 o'clock in the morning, which means that the people that are staying with them have to be available to let them in and to help them in the morning. But the hours they're not enough money to make, to pay a rent. And the hours are variable. And when you have those hourly, low-wage jobs, the boss may tell you at the last minute, oh, I don't need you today. Or alternately, they may tell you when you're ready to get off a shift, I really need you to stay for another shift. And you have your kids staying someplace.
Right.
Interfaith doesn't keep the kids during the day, so the parents have some sort of child care arrangement. So often if we had a mother the last week who got off work at 9 o'clock at night, had to go, she didn't have a car, so she had to take a bus to pick up her kids, and then take a bus downtown and walk to the church in order to have a safe bed for the night. So it's pretty hard. But the transition out, they have case managers working with them, and the case managers are just wonderful. They're very focused. They're not the sweet, nurturing type so much as really focused on how are we going to get the resources to get you into housing. What kind of job improvements, or how can we take advantage of some benefit programs, in order to bring it all together. Which sort of gets in, if you want, Ed, just to move down, which sort of gets into why we thought about this debt forgiveness program, this new program. So many of the